Welcome to Top Stories Hub. Today we've got a new story, a mystery you'll want to unravel. A quiet comfort settles in when life follows a steady routine. You're tuned into what's ahead, the way the day will flow, its familiar cadence. My days were consistent, tough, and downright draining, but they were built on honest effort, 12-hour shifts, a quick meal snatched on the fly, then home to shower, maybe catch a few minutes of TV before collapsing. It wasn't fancy, but it was my life, and I owned it. That Tuesday blended into the rest, nothing special. I eased into the driveway, my body sore, hands roughened from hauling boxes all day at the warehouse. My mind was fixed on how heavenly a hot shower would feel, maybe even a cold beer if I could drag myself to the fridge. Then I noticed Mr. Thompson, my next-door neighbor. He was an older guy, always out fussing over his roses, as if the world's chaos couldn't touch him. We weren't tight, just shared the occasional nod or brief chat by the mailbox. That night started the same, until it took a sharp turn. "Mike, haven't seen Jessica around much lately," he called, eyes still on his watering can as he tended his flowers. I stopped, 1 foot out of my truck, my brain sluggishly shifting from work mode to neighborly small talk. "Yeah," I said, massaging my neck, "she's probably off with her mom." Mr. Thompson let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head. "Nah, I don't buy that. She's been living it up in the Bahamas for days. Saw the photos, looked like a swanky cruise." My heart just froze, like someone hit pause. "What cruise?" I asked, my voice sounding off, almost like it wasn't mine. Mr. Thompson must have caught the edge in my tone because he hesitated, glancing my way before shifting uncomfortably. "Oh, the one your wife posted about online. Some high-end deal." She looked like she was having the time of her life. The words didn't click. They were like puzzle pieces from the wrong box, refusing to fit. Cruise. Bahamas. High-end. Just 3 days ago, Jessica had called me, voice shaking, saying the bills were piling up, her mom's meds were costing a fortune, and we'd lose the apartment if I didn't send her $800. And I did, no questions asked, wiring the cash like I'd done for months, like I always did when she said she was in a bind. I stood there, my hand tightening on the truck door. "You sure it was Jessica?" My voice was too calm, unnervingly steady. "Yep," Mr. Thompson said with a nod. "Your sister-in-law shared a whole bunch of pictures. Saw Jessica in this breezy sundress, sipping some colorful cocktail. Real classy." I swallowed, my throat suddenly parched. She wasn't scraping by. She wasn't stretching every dollar. She wasn't cutting corners on groceries or sweating rent. She was on a damn luxury cruise, and I hadn't even crossed her mind. I can't recall what I said to Mr. Thompson after that. Maybe a quick thanks. Maybe nothing at all. Somehow, I got myself inside the house. The moment I locked the door, the full weight of his words crashed down. This wasn't a slip-up. This wasn't a mix-up. This was betrayal, gut-punching, reality-shattering betrayal that leaves you gasping, doubting everything you thought was real. I collapsed onto the couch, my hands trembling as I fumbled for my phone. My fingers felt sluggish, unsteady, as I opened Facebook. I rarely bothered with it, too swamped with work, too wiped out to care about the polished lives people flaunted online. But now, I had to see it with my own eyes. And there it was, an entire album of photos. Jessica posed on the deck of a massive cruise ship, the ocean sprawling endlessly behind her, her dark hair glinting in the sunlight, her dress billowing like she'd stepped out of a travel ad. Another shot, her parents, clinking champagne glasses, grinning like they didn't have a worry in the world. A group photo, Jessica, her sister's husband, all cracking up at some upscale restaurant. Post after post, picture after picture. Then, the final blow, a comment from Jessica's sister, "Big thanks to Tom for making this trip happen. So generous." I stared at those words, eyes locked, unblinking. Tom, her sister's husband, soaking up praise for funding this getaway, basking in the credit. The same getaway, I now realized, that my money had paid for. A ringing started in my ears, growing louder. I switched to my banking app, heart racing as I scrolled through my transactions. There it was, clear as day, the $800 transfer from 3 days ago, labeled urgent. And before that, the regular payments I'd been sending Jessica every month to help out. I kept scrolling, a jewelry store charge from 2 months back, another from a high-end boutique, a hefty withdrawal around the time her mom supposedly needed surgery. Lie after lie, transaction after transaction, all spelling out the same ugly truth. I'd been nothing but a cash machine to her, a bank account she could tap whenever she pleased. And now, she was sipping cocktails on a cruise while I busted my ass for 12 hours a day to keep us afloat. I gritted my teeth, my grip on the phone so tight my knuckles turned pale. I'd been played, used, disrespected. And she didn't even try to hide it. She didn't think to clue me in because, to her, I didn't matter enough. I didn't deserve the truth. I wasn't worth it. The anger that surged up wasn't like anything I'd felt before. It wasn't just fury, it was something heavier, something absolute. Right then, I knew this wouldn't be just another fight. This wasn't a mistake I could brush off. This was a line drawn in the sand. I let out a slow breath, my hand steadying as a cold determination took hold. Jessica thought she had me wrapped around her finger, that I'd keep funneling money, slaving away while she lived the high life. She thought I was spineless. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I don't know how long I sat there, glued to my phone. Minutes? Hours? Time felt like it was slipping away. Everything I'd believed, every promise, every ounce of trust, had been crushed under the undeniable evidence, the money, the lies, the vacation. And the worst part? She didn't even bother to cover her tracks. She didn't think I'd find out because, in her mind, I'd never dare question her. I was the one who worked, who paid, who sacrificed. She was the one who reaped the rewards. I scrolled through the photos again, each one twisting the knife deeper. Jessica on the ship's deck, head thrown back in laughter. Jessica at some ritzy restaurant, a glass of wine in hand. Jessica next to her sister, both decked out in pricey new clothes. My chest tightened as I swiped to the next image, her parents, the same ones who were supposedly down on their luck, the ones she swore were scraping by, needing my help to keep the lights on. Her dad, the guy who once clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're a solid guy, Mike. Jessica's lucky to have you." Lucky. Was she lucky to have me, or lucky I was too naive to see the truth staring me in the face? The anger simmered again, steady and relentless, like a storm brewing on the horizon. I opened my banking app, eyes scanning the transactions. Now, they looked different. Before, I'd seen them as gestures of love, proof I was holding up my end, taking care of my wife. Now, they were a roadmap of betrayal. The $800 from 3 days ago, supposedly for her mom's meds. The extra cash I sent last month for urgent bills. The weekly transfers, always on schedule, the amounts creeping up over time. And then the other charges, designer labels, jewelry stores, restaurants I'd never set foot in. It was all there, the truth, a truth I should have spotted ages ago. I let out a sharp breath, dragging a hand across my face. She'd played me, and I'd let her. I clenched my jaw, my mind racing through the last few months, replaying every call, every time I'd worried about her, every moment I'd put her needs above my own. Those late-night calls, her voice quivering as she said she didn't know how we'd make it through the month. The way she'd breathe a sigh of relief when I said I'd handle it. The way she'd murmur, "You're incredible, Mike. I'd be lost without you." She knew exactly what she'd do without me. She'd be just fine, lounging by the pool, buying new outfits, living her dream life, on my dime. I shot up from the couch, the room tilting for a second as the full weight of it hit me. I needed to breathe. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. The moment I stepped outside, the cool night air slapped me, but it did nothing to douse the fire in my chest. I strode to my truck, my hand gripping the door handle so hard my knuckles blanched. Drive to her parents' place, demand answers, that was my first urge. But I stopped myself. No, not now. Not when I was this pissed. If I went, I might say something I couldn't take back. Or worse, I might finally see them for who they really were, and I wasn't ready for that yet. Instead, I turned and leaned against the truck, tilting my head to the sky. Stars dotted the dark expanse, calm, unbothered. I took a slow breath, trying to clear my head. What now? One thing was crystal clear, I was done being their pawn. And I wasn't letting this slide. I pulled out my phone again, scrolling through the transactions one last time, mentally tallying every cent that had been siphoned from my account. Then I did something I never thought I'd have the guts to do, I canceled every payment. The automatic transfers bleeding my account weekly, done. The emergency fund I'd set up for her, wiped out. The shared credit card I'd handed over for household expenses, locked. A grim satisfaction washed over me as I hit the final confirmation button. Let's see how she liked her lavish lifestyle now. Let's see how she felt when the cash dried up. I stuffed my phone in my pocket, my pulse still racing. It wasn't enough. Cutting off the payments was a start, but it wasn't justice. It wasn't holding her accountable. Jessica had spent months, maybe years, lying to my face with ease, like I was just a footnote, like my grind, my sacrifices, meant nothing. The thought made my blood boil all over again. I needed her to own up to it. I needed to hear the truth straight from her mouth, no excuses, no crocodile tears, just the facts. And if she thought she could sweet-talk her way back into my good graces, she was about to get a harsh wake-up call. I straightened up, stepping away from the truck. Tomorrow, I was heading to her parents' house, and I wasn't leaving until I got the truth I deserved. The next morning, I woke with a feeling I hadn't had in years, clarity. For the first time, I wasn't doubting myself, wasn't making excuses for Jessica, wasn't trying to convince myself there might be some logical explanation. There wasn't. She'd deceived me, robbed me, made me look like a fool. And today, she was going to admit it. I got out of bed with purpose, no second thoughts. I showered, pulled on a fresh shirt, and grabbed my keys without a pause. I didn't even glance at my phone. I knew what was waiting, missed calls, texts, more lies spun into tidy messages. But I didn't want a texted apology. I wanted to see her face, watch her squirm when she realized she'd crossed a line too far. So I left my phone on the nightstand and walked out the door. The trip to Jessica's parents' place felt too short for my liking. I needed more time to untangle the whirlwind of thoughts spinning in my head, but before I could catch my breath, I was already rolling into their driveway. Her car was parked there. Perfect. I stepped out of my truck, my heart racing but my fury locked in, steady as a rock. No outbursts, no trembling hands, just a sharp, unshakable determination. I rapped on the door twice. A beat later, it swung open, and there she was, Jessica, in her pajamas, hair a tangled mess from sleep. Her eyes widened the instant they landed on me. "Mike," she stammered, flashing a shaky smile. "What brings you here?" I didn't return the smile. "How was your cruise?" The words hit her like a punch. Her face twitched, a flash of fear crossing it before she masked it. She glanced back, as if hoping someone would swoop in to bail her out. No one did. She faced me again, licking her lips nervously. "What are you even talking about?" "Cut it out," I said, my tone low but solid. "Don't act clueless. I know where you were. I saw the photos." Her mouth parted, but nothing came out. For once, she was at a loss for words. I took a step closer. "3 days ago, you were on the phone, sobbing, pleading for cash, saying the bills were drowning you, that your mom's meds were too pricey. And that same day, you hopped on a cruise ship. Her face went pale. Mike, I can clear this up. Clear up what? I snapped, cutting her off. That you lied to me? That you took my money? That you blew it on fancy drinks and designer clothes while I was grinding through 12-hour shifts to keep us above water? She flinched, wrapping her arms around herself. It's not what you think. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Not what I think. Then enlighten me, Jessica. What's the real story? She froze, and that pause told me everything. She wasn't remorseful. She was grasping for words, trying to spin something to twist my guilt. When she saw it wasn't working, the facade crumbled. She huffed, rolling her eyes. Fine, okay. We took a cruise. Big deal. I stared, incredulous. Big deal. She shrugged, nonchalant. Mike, the trip was already paid for. Sarah and Tom set it up ages ago. We just needed some extra cash for fun. My hands balled into fists at my sides. Extra cash. You mean my cash? Her eyes darted toward the house, avoiding mine. Look, I didn't think you'd want to tag along. You wouldn't have enjoyed it, Mike. It was a high-class cruise, not exactly your scene. There it was, the final dagger. She hadn't just deceived me, hadn't just stolen from me. She'd purposely left me out because, to her, I didn't measure up. I wasn't part of her world. I was just the guy footing the bill. A chilling calm washed over me. I hear you. Her brow creased. Mike, that's not what I meant. You meant exactly that. I pulled out my phone. Mike, what are you doing? I ignored her, opening my banking app and navigating to the payments, the ones that had fueled her cushy lifestyle, the ones she'd counted on. One by one, I shut them down. Her face shifted, panic setting in. Hold on, Mike. I hit the last button, confirmed the cancellations, then held up my phone for her to see. You're done, I said. Her face drained of color. Mike, you can't just. Oh, I can. She lunged forward, reaching for me, but I stepped back. Her desperation grew. Okay, fine, I screwed up, but we can work this out. I'll make it right. I shook my head. No, Jessica. You won't. Her breaths came fast, her hands wringing together. Mike, please. It wasn't genuine remorse. It wasn't sorrow. It was fear, fear of losing her lifeline, her personal ATM. I gave her one last look, the woman I'd loved, the woman I'd trusted, and felt only revulsion. You chose this path, I said. Now you get to walk it. I turned and walked away. She didn't chase after me. She stood rooted to the doorstep, stunned. As I drove off, her silhouette shrinking in my rearview mirror, a feeling I hadn't known in years flooded me, freedom. The drive back home felt different. No rage, no heartbreak, no second-guessing, just a quiet calm, the kind that follows a storm when the air finally clears. I'd done it. I'd cut her off, and she knew it. Her face, her shock, her disbelief, replayed in my mind. For the first time, she was the one left reeling. For the first time, I held the reins. When I pulled into my driveway, a bone-deep weariness hit, not just from today, but from years of being drained, manipulated, guilt into giving everything while getting nothing back. I sat in the truck for a moment, hands gripping the wheel, letting the reality of my actions sink in. No more payments. No more frantic late-night calls. No more sacrificing my peace for someone who never cared about me. I'd carried them, Jessica, her family, their endless demands, for so long that I'd forgotten how it felt to simply exist. Now, they'd have to fend for themselves. I got out of the truck and headed inside, locking the door behind me. The house was still, empty, but for once, that didn't faze me. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and settled at the table. For the first time in years, my bank account wasn't bleeding out for someone else's gain. My hard-earned money was finally mine. I opened my phone and checked my transactions one last time. The cancelled payments, the locked accounts, it felt final, like closing a chapter. And I was good with that. I took a swig of my beer and leaned back, gazing at the ceiling. Jessica thought she could skate by, that I'd keep bankrolling her life. She thought I was a pushover. She couldn't have been more wrong. The fallout kicked off. My phone buzzed. I glanced down, her name. I ignored it. Seconds later, another call, then another, followed by texts. Jessica, Mike, please, let's talk. I snorted. We'd already had our talk. She just didn't like how it ended. Another message popped up. Jessica, I didn't mean those things. I was exhausted, not thinking straight. Another lie. Every word she'd said was deliberate. I put my phone on silent and set it aside. Let her stew in her panic. I was finished. For the first time since meeting her, I wasn't the one fixing her chaos. And damn, that felt liberating. The next step. When I woke up the next day, my phone was littered with missed calls, not just from Jessica, but from her mom, her dad, even Sarah, all scrambling to get through to me. I didn't pick up. Instead, I threw on some clothes, grabbed my keys, and headed to the bank. It was time to lock this down for good. In 15 minutes, my accounts were airtight. Jessica had never been officially listed on them, but I'd given her access to a few cards for household expenses, as she'd called it. Not anymore. I cancelled every single one. When I walked out of the bank, there was nothing left for her to siphon off. She was completely on her own. The tipping point. That afternoon, I was tinkering in the garage when I heard a car pull up. I wiped my hands on a rag and headed to the front door, already knowing who I'd find. Jessica. She stood by her car, arms crossed, her face puffy like she'd been crying. Mike, she said, her voice cracking. I leaned against the doorframe, calm and unmoved. What do you want, Jessica? She sniffled, stepping closer. Can we just have a conversation? Please. I fixed my eyes on her. We already had one. She swallowed hard. I never meant to hurt you. I let out a dry laugh. That's rich, considering how quick you were to burn through my money. Her eyes flared with a hint of defiance. Mike, it wasn't like that. Then explain it to me, I said, folding my arms, cutting her off. She faltered, and that hesitation said it all. She had no real excuses, no valid reasons, just another attempt to play me. I didn't think you'd mind, she finally mumbled, her voice barely audible. I locked eyes with her, stunned. You figured I wouldn't give a damn? Jessica let out a heavy sigh. I just assumed you'd get it, Mike. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head in disbelief. Get what, Jessica? That you swiped my cash, fed me lies, and had me believing we were scraping by while you were out there living large. She didn't say a word. I gave a curt nod. Exactly what I thought. I turned to head back inside, but her voice stopped me cold. So you're just gonna walk away like that? She asked, her tone sharpening. I spun around. What else is there to do, Jessica? Her jaw clenched, eyes narrowing. That's it, then. I held her gaze, unflinching. Yeah. That's it. Her expression twisted, sorrow morphing into fury. You're being so petty, she hissed, over a couple grand. A grim, bitter smile tugged at my lips. No, Jessica. I'm done because I finally see who you really are. She opened her mouth to fire back, but I shut the door in her face. She banged on it for a minute, maybe two, then nothing. I heard her car door slam, tires squealing as she peeled out. And just like that, it was over. The relief hit hard. I stood there, staring at the closed door for what felt like forever, bracing for the guilt, the regret, the second-guessing. But none of it came. Instead, a weight lifted, like I'd finally shed a burden I'd been hauling for years without even realizing it. Jessica had been my anchor, dragging me under, smothering me with her endless demands. Now, I was free. For the first time in ages, my life was mine again, and I wasn't about to squander it. I thought the quiet would last longer. After the way Jessica sped off, after the finality of my words, I figured she might have finally accepted I was through. I was dead wrong. That night, the messages started up again. At first, they were predictable: apologies, excuses, hollow promises. Jessica, Mike, can we please just talk? Jessica, I screwed up. I freaked out when you called me out, but it's not what you think, I swear. Jessica, I love you, Mike. Don't throw away everything over one mistake. I ignored every single one. But she wasn't backing down. An hour later, the tone shifted. Jessica, do you even realize what you're putting me through? Jessica, I can't cover my bills, Mike. You're my husband, you're supposed to take care of me. Jessica, I hope you can sleep at night, knowing you're abandoning your wife. Abandoning her. That was a laugh. For years, I'd worked myself to exhaustion, pouring money into our life, her life, without a second thought. And now, the moment I pulled the plug, I was the bad guy. I set my phone down and let out a long breath, staring at the ceiling. She still didn't grasp it, still believed she had some power over me, still thought she could guilt me into coming back. She was so wrong. But I didn't realize just how desperate she'd gotten. The next step. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was flooded with more messages, not just from Jessica, but from her mom, Karen. Karen, Mike, I don't know what's going on with you and Jessica, but we need to talk. Karen, she's a wreck, crying her eyes out, terrified she'll lose everything. We're family, Mike. Karen, family looks out for each other. I snorted and tossed my phone onto the bed. Family. That was a good one. As far as I could recall, Jessica's family never treated me like I belonged. Not when they left me out of their vacations. Not when they burned through my money while acting like I was invisible. Not when they grinned at me, fully aware of what Jessica was pulling behind my back. But now that the cash flow had dried up, suddenly, we were family. I shook my head, not buying it for a second. But it wasn't over. An hour later, my phone rang. I knew the number right away, Jessica's dad. I nearly sent it to voicemail, but a part of me was curious to hear what lame excuse he'd try. So I picked up. Mike, he said, his voice calm and calculated. Son, let's not rush into anything. I let out a dry laugh. We're way beyond that, David. A pause, then a heavy sigh. I get that you're upset, and I hear you. But let's talk this through like adults. You're married to Jessica. That comes with responsibilities. There it was, the manipulation, dressed up as concern, packaged in reason. I let him ramble about how marriage means compromise, how everyone messes up sometimes, how cutting Jessica off wasn't the solution. When he finally paused, expecting me to cave, I gave him my answer, no. Silence. What's that? He said, caught off guard. No, I said again, firm. I don't owe Jessica a thing. Not after what she pulled. A moment passed, and then the facade cracked. You're making a big mistake, Mike, he said, his tone hardening. Funny, I shot back, that's what I thought every time I sent her money. I hung up before he could get another word in. For the first time in years, I felt nothing, no guilt, no doubt, no wavering. Just pure certainty. The manipulation ramps up. By the end of the day, it wasn't just Jessica's parents. Her sister, her aunt, even a few mutual friends I hadn't talked to in ages were piling on. Chris, dude, I don't know the full story, but Jessica's a mess. Maybe give her a chance to explain. Ashley, Mike, relationships aren't easy. You can't just shut someone out like that. It was almost comical, how they were all scrambling, suddenly so invested in our marriage. Where was this passion when Jessica was lying through her teeth? Where was this worry when she was blowing my money on a vacation she didn't bother inviting me to? It didn't matter. I wasn't justifying myself. I wasn't defending my choice. I was done. I blocked every number, one by one. The moment I hit that final block, the world felt a little lighter. The last move. I should have known she had one more trick up her sleeve. That night, I was halfway through a TV show when the doorbell chimed. I sighed, already sure of who it was. I got up, walked to the door, and opened it. There she was, Jessica, makeup streaked, eyes swollen from tears. I didn't say a word, just crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. "Mike," she whispered, voice trembling. "Please." I stayed silent. She took a shaky breath. "I'm done fighting. I just want my husband back." Her voice broke, tears spilling down her cheeks. It was an Oscar-worthy act, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. "You don't want me back," I said, voice low. "You want your bank account back." She shook her head fast. "No, that's not true." "Then why weren't you crying like this when you were sipping cocktails in the Bahamas?" Her face twitched. "Why didn't you call me your husband when you were splurging my money on shopping binges?" I pressed. "Why am I only worth fighting for now that I've walked away?" Her mouth opened, but no words came. She knew she'd been caught. "Mike, I messed up," she tried again, softer. "But we can fix this. We can go back to how it was." I let out a slow breath. She still didn't get it. "Here's the thing, Jessica," I said, my voice steady. "I don't want to go back." Her lip quivered. "So that's it?" "Yeah," I said. "That's it." One final tear rolled down her cheek, but I felt no guilt, no stirring of emotion. I stepped back inside and shut the door. This time, she didn't knock. She didn't call. She didn't try to force her way in. She just stood there, frozen. Then, after a long pause, she walked away. I watched through the window as she climbed into her car and drove off. When she was gone, I let out a breath. The weight was gone. The burden was lifted. For the first time in years, I was truly free. The quiet didn't hold. By the next morning, I'd become the bad guy, not just to Jessica, but to everyone we'd ever known. I didn't need to check my phone to feel it. It started at work, awkward glances, half-hearted hellos, conversations that died when I entered the break room. By noon, Chris, the same friend who'd texted me to give her a chance, pulled me aside. "Dude," Chris said, scratching the back of his neck awkwardly, "Jessica's telling everyone you just bailed on her." I let out a quick, exasperated breath, not shocked in the least. "She's claiming I dropped her out of the blue," he went on, sounding like he hated being the one to deliver the news, "like you walked away without a word, like she means nothing to you." I snorted. Did she happen to mention how she lied to me for months? How she siphoned my money to fund a fancy cruise while I was killing myself at work? Chris paused, uncomfortable. "Nah, she's just saying she's crushed, like she has no clue why this happened." Of course. In Jessica's story, she was always the poor, wronged soul. And now, she was making damn sure everyone bought into her version. The social media storm. By the time I got home that night, I was already worn out from the hushed whispers and sneaky glances at work. But when I finally glanced at my phone, it was even uglier than I'd expected. Jessica had dragged our drama into the open. Right there on Facebook was a long, tear-jerking post, paired with a pitiful selfie. I never imagined I'd feel the sting of real betrayal, but here I am. I poured my heart into someone I thought would always have my back, only for him to toss me aside like I was worthless. I don't even know who he is anymore. I just hope he one day sees what he's destroyed before it's too late. It had all the hallmarks: vague jabs, emotional puppet strings, and a complete lack of any real specifics. The comments were exactly what I'd predicted: "You're too good for him, girl. Hang in there. Heartbroken. If he can ditch you that easily, he never truly cared. Guys always show their true selves when things get rough." Rough. I let out a bitter chuckle. Things weren't rough for Jessica when she was blowing my cash, sipping cocktails in the Bahamas. They weren't rough when she was strutting around in designer outfits I didn't even know she owned. They weren't rough when she was gloating to her family about her generous husband who always footed the bill. But now that the money was gone, suddenly, life was unbearable. I scrolled through the comments, watching people who'd never given a damn about our marriage suddenly weigh in with their hot takes. Then I saw it, Sarah's comment, Jessica's sister: "He didn't just stab you in the back, Jess. He turned his back on all of us. After everything we did for him, all the love and support we showed, he just bailed. Some people only care about number one." I clenched my jaw, fuming. All their love and support? Like when they used my money for trips they never invited me on? Like when they treated me like an outsider in my own marriage? Like when they kept taking, never once acknowledging what I was giving up? I blew out a sharp breath and locked my phone. I wasn't playing their game. If Jessica wanted to paint herself as the victim, let her. If she wanted to twist the narrative so I was the villain, so be it. The people who mattered, the ones who really knew me, would see through the BS. And if they didn't deserve a place in my life. The surprise supporter. The next day, a call came out of nowhere. It was Emily, a friend we both knew, but she was tighter with Jessica. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me, so I answered. "Mike," she said right away, her voice cautious. "Can we chat?" I sighed, bracing myself. "If you're here to push me to patch things up, save your breath." There was a beat of silence, then, "I'm not calling for her," Emily said. "I'm calling because I know she's full of it." That stopped me cold. "Say that again?" I asked. She let out a weary sigh. I saw her Facebook post, read all the comments, and at first, I bought into it. Why wouldn't I? She paused. But then. Then what? Then I started piecing together the timeline, she said. Like how just last month, she was flaunting that cruise, showing off the new outfits she got for it. She took a deep breath. And then I remembered how, that same week, she was telling you she couldn't cover rent. I gripped the phone tighter, my jaw set. She saw it. And she wasn't alone. Some people are starting to raise eyebrows, Emily went on. Not everyone, of course. Some will eat up whatever makes Jessica look like the saint. But not everyone's swallowing her story. I let out a slow breath. And you? What's your take? A brief pause, then, I think you made the right call, she said softly. And I just wanted you to know that. I ran a hand over my face, a bit of the tension melting away. Thanks, Emily, I said. That means a lot, more than you probably realize. She let out a small laugh. Just don't tell Jessica I called. I'm not in the mood for that drama. I chuckled. Don't worry. My lips are sealed. Pressing on. By the end of the week, the chaos started to fizzle out. People moved on, their focus shifting to the next big thing, the next person's drama. And just like that, Jessica's sob story lost its spark. Here's the deal with people who feed off drama, they only have power when they've got an audience. The second the crowd loses interest, their grip slips. Jessica kept trying to fan the flames, playing the victim in every chat, squeezing sympathy from anyone who'd listen. But people started to get fed up. They noticed the cracks in her story. Some even began asking tough questions. Why was she still rocking designer gear if she was so broke? Why didn't she ever bring up the cruise before if it was all above board? Why, if she was so shocked, was she already hitting up others for cash before I even pulled the plug? Bit by bit, the truth started seeping through. By the end of the month, the sympathy messages dried up. Instead, she was dodging questions she didn't want to face. As for me, I was getting on with my life. For the first time in years, I was making plans that didn't revolve around someone else's demands. My money stayed in my pocket. I wasn't caught in someone else's web of lies anymore. The public drama had been rough, but the peace that came after, worth every moment of it. When the dust finally settled, I thought it was done. The online firestorm had petered out, people stopped caring, Jessica's pity party ran out of steam, and most importantly, I was free. Or so I thought. I should have known she'd have one last desperate play to drag me back in. The call that shook everything. It came exactly a month after I cut her off. I was at the kitchen table, savoring something I hadn't had in forever, calm. No texts, no fake crises, no money vanishing from my account. Just a quiet, ordinary night. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, an unfamiliar number. Normally, I'd let it slide, but something nudged me to answer. So I did. I pressed the phone to my ear. Yeah. A brief silence, then a voice I hadn't heard in weeks. Mike, it's me. Jessica. Her voice was off, no fake bravado, no snarky digs. She sounded empty, drained. I leaned back in my chair. How'd you get this number? She let out a trembling breath. That's not the point. Mike, I need you. I let out a dry scoff. That's a good one, considering you seem just fine without me, living it up, right? She gave a weak, bitter laugh. Yeah, well, not anymore. Her voice broke. Mike, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I didn't say a word. I let the silence stretch, because now she was tasting what I'd lived with for years, desperation, helplessness, isolation. And she'd brought it all on herself. Mike, please, she pressed, her voice heavy with emotion. Just listen to me. I stayed quiet. The longer I held back, the more she had to spill. And sure enough, the truth came tumbling out. Tom left Sarah, she blurted. That caught my ear. I raised an eyebrow. Really? She sniffled. Yeah, he found out she was cheating. Kicked her out, cut her off completely. It's a disaster. I settled back in my chair. Sounds like a rough spot. Jessica's breath hitched. She's back living with our parents, and Mike, it's bad. My dad lost a fortune on some shady investment deal. My mom's had to pawn her jewelry just to keep the lights on. I didn't respond. She kept going. And me, I thought I'd be fine. I thought I could handle it, but, another shaky breath. I can't. I don't have enough for rent. I sold my car last week. I don't even know how I'll buy food next month. Her voice cracked again. I'm falling apart, Mike. My whole life is collapsing. There it was, the real reason she called. I rubbed my jaw, pretending to mull it over. Huh. That's something. She sniffled, confused. What's that supposed to mean? I gave a cold smile. It's just that's exactly how I felt when I learned my wife had been deceiving me for months, taking my money, splashing it on trips I wasn't even invited to. A heavy silence hung, then, Mike. You didn't give a damn when my life was crumbling, I interrupted, my voice sharp. So why should I care now that yours is falling apart? A stifled sob came through the line. Mike, please. I screwed up. You sure did, I said, unflinching. The guilt trip attempt. She sniffled, pulling herself together. But I still love you, Mike. I let out a full, genuine laugh. Love me? I echoed. Jessica, you loved what I could bankroll for you. That's not true, she murmured, barely audible. Oh, it's true, I shot back. And you want to know why I'm so sure? Silence. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have spun lies. You wouldn't have used me like a cash machine. You wouldn't have let me think we were barely scraping by while you were out there living the high life behind my back. She didn't say a word. She couldn't. Deep down, she knew I was right. I let out a breath, shaking my head. You don't miss me, Jessica. You miss the lifestyle I funded. Her breaths were shaky now, uneven. Mike, I've got no one else. Those words lingered in the air. For a fleeting second, I thought of the guy I used to be, the one who'd have buckled, let guilt reel him back, convinced himself that maybe, just maybe, she was sincere this time. But that guy was history. In his place was someone who'd finally recognized his own value. The last farewell. I took a steadying breath, my voice calm but firm. That's not my burden, Jessica. She gasped, like she hadn't seen it coming. But I meant every word, and for the first time, she felt the weight of it. This is what you chose, I went on. This is the life you built. Another choked sob. I thought I had more time. I thought you'd always be there. I nodded, though she couldn't see it. Yeah, I thought so too. A long, aching silence stretched out. Then, in a faint, broken whisper, she said, so this is really it? I shut my eyes, drawing in a deep breath. Then I let it go. Yeah, I said quietly. This is it. She didn't respond after that. No arguments, no pleading. She knew there was no fixing this, no words that could sway me. For the first time, she was truly on her own. One final, trembling breath came through, and then she hung up. I stared at my phone for a moment, then blocked her number. And just like that, Jessica was out of my life. Freedom at last. I leaned back in my chair, letting the quiet envelop me. No more guilt trips, no more manipulation, no more pouring myself into someone who never gave a damn about me. I was free, completely, undeniably free. As I sat there, sipping my beer, it hit me, for the first time in years, I was excited about what lay ahead. I hadn't realized how crushing the load had been until it was lifted. For years, I'd shouldered the weight of someone else's demands, their problems, their bottomless expectations. Jessica had bled me dry, not just my wallet, but my spirit. Now, for the first time as an adult, I was unburdened. No one leaned on me. No one played me. No one saw me as a cash dispenser instead of a person. And man, it felt incredible. The dawn of my new life. The morning after Jessica's last call, I woke to something rare, stillness. Not the tense quiet of avoiding conflict, not the heavy hush of an unresolved fight, but true, peaceful silence. No frantic texts, no voicemails dripping with guilt, no relatives trying to reason with me. Just me, my thoughts, and the reassuring truth that I didn't owe anyone a thing. I whipped up breakfast, nothing fancy, just eggs and toast, but I savored every second. No hurry to rush to work for extra hours, no need to check my bank account, paranoid about another $600 vanishing. No stress. Just me, enjoying a meal I'd paid for, knowing every cent was for my benefit. It felt odd, amazing, but odd, because for so long, money had meant sacrifice. It was never mine, it was always theirs. But now, I could finally embrace the life I'd worked so hard to earn. Reclaiming what was mine. With Jessica gone, I had space to take stock, really see what I'd let slide. My house, for starters. I hadn't touched it since I bought it, too busy funneling cash into her endless needs. So I jotted down a plan, patched the leaky sink, buy a new TV, one I'd actually enjoy, spruce up the backyard, maybe throw in a grill. For the first time, my money was building my home, not padding Jessica's closet or her family's extravagance. I had time, too. Time to hang with friends, the real ones, who stuck by me even after Jessica's smear campaign. Time to dust off hobbies I'd shelved, things I'd told myself I couldn't afford when, in truth, my money was just being diverted. Time to live for me, not to prop up someone else's existence. And my bank account? It was flourishing. It's wild how fast savings pile up when no one's strong-arming you into handing it over. In a month, I'd stashed away more than I had in the past 2 years. By 3 months, I had enough for a vacation, one I chose, paid for, and would actually get to enjoy. No guilt, no strings, just me reaping the rewards of my own grind. Jessica's collapse. Here's the thing about people like Jessica, they only shine when they've got someone to mooch off. When that source dries up, they fall apart. I didn't go digging for updates. I didn't creep on her social media or ask around. But word travels. She'd lost her apartment. The friends who'd cheered her on at first. Most bailed when they saw the handouts weren't coming. She tried landing another wealthy guy, but her reputation caught up with her. People knew her game, and no one wanted to be her next mark. I thought I'd feel a rush hearing about her downfall, but I didn't. Not because I pitied her, but because, for the first time, I genuinely didn't care. Her life wasn't my concern. Her struggles weren't my weight to carry. Her future wasn't my responsibility. She'd made her bed, now she had to lie in it. A life that's mine. 6 months after walking away from Jessica, I was happier than I'd been in years. Not just because my bank account was healthier, though that was a sweet perk. Not just because I'd dodged her manipulation, though that freedom was golden. But because I'd finally figured out what it meant to live for myself. I had boundaries now. I had self-worth. I had a future unburdened by someone else's greed. Looking back, I saw something clear: leaving wasn't defeat. It was victory. Sometimes, the greatest win is cutting loose the people who never deserved you. And me? I'd come out on top. The ultimate takeaway. If I learned one thing from all this, it's this: love without respect is just manipulation in disguise. Financial abuse isn't limited to romance, it creeps into families, friendships, and marriages too. The ones who know how to twist your guilt are often the ones who wired it into you. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're essential. Helping others shouldn't mean torching yourself. If someone only values what you can provide, they never valued you. And the biggest lesson of all, walking away isn't failure. Sometimes, it's proof you've finally won at respecting yourself enough to demand better. And I'll never settle for less again. That's all for today's tale on Top Stories Hub. Hit subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me what you'd like to see next.